Hi everyone, welcome back to the fourth part of our Adobe Xd basic series. If you are following along with me, when it comes to grids and guides, you have a few approaches you can take with the application. Let's start with the guides first. The Xd team took quite a long time to introduce guides. The goal was to keep the interface as simple and relevant as possible. They did away with this arbitrary concept of rulers in favor of smart guides, which can be incredibly useful in conjunction with guides, or what's often known as blue lines. When I want to add a guide to an artboard, all I need to do is take my selection tool. So here I have the selection tool enabled, hover up towards the top edge of the artboard. Notice as I do so, my cursor is going to change right when I get to that edge. That lets me know that I can drag down a guide. So from here I just press and drag that guide. Now as I'm doing so, notice the ping indicators. The smart guides on the side, it's letting me know how much distance is above and below the guide as I pull it. I also get a Y value in this instance. So in the other direction showing me the location of that cursor, which doesn't really matter much in relationship to my guides, but that ping value does. I'm going to go ahead and put my guide here at about say 16 pixels. I can do the same with the left and right side by pulling guide from the left. So notice I come to the edge of the artboard, there's my ability to pull that guide. We will go ahead and press and drag it both to the left here and to the right hand side. Now you may or may not be able to notice that as I get close, things get a little jumpy because they are going to snap in their place in relationship of objects. So as I get close to an object that might be there, the smart guide behavior will snap in place. If at times you don't want that behavior, you don't want snapping, you can always hold command on the Mac or control on Windows. As you drag, it will give you more of a smooth drag that won't snap to any objects or other guides that might be there. But go ahead and let go of that key and snap right there to the other edge. If I want to come down to the bottom of the artboard, I can do that same behavior. But this does show a little bit of how guides are fun to work with. In order to have a guide here towards the bottom, I need to be able to see the top of my artboard, come on in and press and drag a guide down. I might get halfway, let's say, and then zoom in on it. I can always replace guides once I have them on the artboard. What I need to do is just again watch my cursor. As I hover over an existing guide, the cursor is going to change, allowing me to drag that little further down towards the top of my footer area. I have got those set now. Let's say I want to now apply those to other artboards. So I have got another artboard that is the same size and one that's different, just to kind of show how that works. So once I have a set of guides that I have defined on an artboard, I can come in and select that artboard. And in view, there is a sub menu of guides. And it's here that I can come in and copy the guide on the currently selected artboard. Notice I also can clear out everything that I have already defined if I want to get rid of it. I can delete guides one at a time by dragging them off one of the other sides of the artboard, or I can delete them all in bulk by selecting clear guides. I also can hide guides and lock guides using keyword commands. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. What I want to do now is come in and copy those guides. And as you probably saw in the right click menu under guides, I have the ability to paste guides to the currently selected artboards. There's an easier way of doing that. So I can come in and select two additional artboards, hold the shift key and select the second artboard. Now if I just come and select in the right menu paste, it's going to paste the guides there essence on the clipboard. So notice that it pasted all of the guides on the comparable size artboard. But if the artboard smaller, it's going to start from the upper corner and apply that's relevant around those guides. So if I did want to come in and delete, I can just press and drag off it or hit undo there. One point that is worth mentioning is I have to be close enough to the artboard to be able to add a guide. So notice that I am here at almost at 13.5%. I think it's at 16% or larger. The ability to drag guides occurs. If I change these to 15% and hit enter and then come over to with that artboard, notice that I'm not getting the indicator that allows me to drag that guide. When I zoom in a little more tightly, I get those indicators. The idea was that you wouldn't be able to really see where you are dragging at such a small percentage. So they suppress the visibility of those guides in that situation. Grids applied at a global level when you are designing for your site. You can set the global attribute as the default and then override those default as you go along. To begin with, let's select the artboard and then notice in the properties inspector with the artboard selected, I have a grid section. I can come in and check that and then choose if I want it to be a layout or a square. We'll talk about square in a moment. I will go with the layout. From there, can come in and set the default attributes that I want to work with. So my design does lend itself to a 12 column grid. So we'll go ahead and leave that alone. The gutter width of 15 looks a little small to me, so we'll go ahead and change that to 20. Now there's a balance of how grids all fit together on the page. So you'll notice as you come in and change some of the attributes, it will go back and change some of the others. So definitely want to fiddle with it a little bit based on the actual design that you're working with. I can come in and change the default color. So if the design I'm working on happens to have a whole lot of cyan, I might want to go with the magenta instead. So I can come in the swatches area, change out to another color and maybe lighten it up or darken it up based on my own taste on my desire there. So once I have this set, I can click back of the color selection area, and if I like what I have got going on, I can come in and make that a default. So now that I have them set, as I mentioned, you can take different approach if you would to prefer to work with a grid system. Let's come on in here and just look at the content that I have. I can come in and change it from column to grid instead. So let's make sure that I select this artboard so we know which one we are affecting. And then in the drop down, instead of layout, I will select square. I can come in now and define what to do. I want the square grid to be like. So by default I have 8 here. Chances are you can pull out a calculator and you look at the width of your design. Or you are leveraging things like 960 design where you have a responsive mindset or a responsive structure that you are using so that you are defining breakpoints for the web. You can adjust appropriately. Whatever system you are working with, you may want to reference that as you come along. So perhaps I wanted to go with a 16 unit grid. I can change that value. I can also come in and change the color. So if I want this to be that pretty shade of pink, I can come in and change that to be more and change the opacity a little bit. So it's somewhat gentler. Now if I click off here, one of the nice parts about having grids or guides in place is that smart guide behavior will work. So I can press and drag my content. Notice how it's sort of jumping around. That can be a good thing if I'm trying to align to the grid. As I mentioned earlier, if I hold command on the Mac or control on Windows, I can freely drag without aligning to the grid. If I release, I can go ahead and snap back into that grid structure as a verb. This is definitely something you will want to experiment with and adjust your own design style. If you remember in the last video, I mentioned that you can hide and show your guides. So this becomes pretty important. If we go back to view guides, I can see the shortcuts. So to hide all guides, I'm going to hit command on Mac or control on Windows and the semicolon. And then to lock guides, I have shift plus control plus semicolon. So if I come out here, I will go ahead and hold that control semicolon and that hides my guide. If I want to do the same for the grid, I can go in and hold control and the apostrophe, which is going to hide and show those grids. So command on Mac, control on Windows and the apostrophe. You will notice I have a number of icons here and I want to come in and align them. They are all slightly different in size and shape. So it's definitely something that I want to play around with visually. I can come in and select an individual item, and as I press and drag it along in relationship to the other objects, notice that I am letting indicators around the space between the objects as well as an indicator that shows me the actual width of the object. So I have the cyan color and the magenta differentiating between the object and the space between objects. I can continue to drag in this way until things start to look visibly good to me. Another thing I can do is use the align tools that are built into the application. So for that I will come on in and select the whole group. So here in the upper left hand corner of the properties inspector, I have a series of align icons that are probably familiar to you from other Adobe applications. So starting from the left here, I can align the tops of these objects. I can align the bottoms. I can align center, which looks pretty good to me. I also have the ability to distribute them within the selected set. So if I click on that, it will distribute the space evenly between each of the icons. And the same is true on the other axis with another set of icons that are here. When I have the group selected, I can come in and resize them. So this is a series of paths. They are vector files. I actually have lines that I have drawn here. So it's not a filled shape. It's actually a line. Xd does not scale line weight. So if I have come in and resized this group, notice that just holding no key down and pressing and dragging it along, by default, distribute the individual items within the group. So that's not advisable depending on the type of content I have here. I'm going to hit Command on the Mac or Control on Windows and the Z key to undo that. Now if I hold the Shift key as I drag the objects, notice that I'm resizing them. They're staying whole and proportionate as they get larger. Now that I have that set, I can also distribute or resize without scaling the object using specific keys. So if I hold down the Command key now and press and drag the objects, notice that they are staying their original height and width, but the space between them is increasing or decreasing. So I can tighten things up while preserving all of the other alignment attributes I have defined. So where they are in a relationship to one another, centered across and equally distributed. One trick that I learned recently is that you can also align artboard in this same way. I were to step out, I've got a bunch of artboards here, and let's say they are getting kind of messy and I've got a lot of them to deal with. I can come in and roughly get them where I want to be and just select them. So use the select tool to select all of the artboards and then quickly come on and align their tops, for example, and distribute them equally. When you copy content to the clipboard and paste it back, Xd is going to position that content in the same X and Y location, which is handier than you might think. Trying to align an object, let's say, down to the pixel that doesn't move from artboard to artboard can be really tedious. And when a viewer is viewing your design, even the slightest offset of a pixel or two will catch their eye. And it just looks like things are moving when they shouldn't be. To work with paste templates, it's pretty straightforward. I can come in and select an individual object and copy that on the clipboard, and then when I come to paste it, it's going to paste in the same X and Y location. So that's pretty straightforward. I will go ahead and delete that. Let me come in and select this full group. I will hold the Command key. I am going to just reduce the space between them a little bit, and then once again I will select the full set and move them to a position here on the first artboard. Well, notice down below I have two artboards. They are of different sizes and shapes. I wanted to show that behavior. So I'm going to come into the first content, so that first artboard, and right click to copy. Next I'm going to come in and select 1 and 2, the artboards below, and I will right click and just paste. Although it doesn't quite look like it, when I click off, Xd has looked at the X and Y location from this upper left hand corner and on all the two artboards. If I do that one more time, I'm going to undo the paste behavior and keep all two artboards selected. Let's go ahead and zoom in so I only see the one artboard, and then once again I will right click and select paste and click off. When I zoom out, nothing was pasted on the second art. That's on purpose. The assumptions from the Xd team is that if you copy a whole bunch of artboards and you are pasting onto them, if it's outside of your view, you may not want to be pasting on it. So everything that you are pasting to needs to be visible on a design canvas when you go to do that. Pretty straightforward feature. is one of those that you will really grow to appreciate when you are doing your own actual design work. With this, we have come to the end of our fourth part of this XD series. In the next part, we are going to see some of the padding and stacks behavior. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe to my channel. Goodbye.